Academic mobility is important for everybody's academic career. The computer science is like a multidisciplinary. That I want to do data mining or machine learning or bioinformatics, they actually laughed at me that there is no jobs in data. This was the first time they heard about data mining.
What's your favorite hobby?
I like programming.
Hello, it's ChatFCS. Today we are joined by Professor Attila Kertesz-Farkas, the head of AI for Computational Biology Lab. And thank you for the interview.
Thank you for inviting me.
We wanted to start from the beginning. Why did you choose the computer science as your career path, and what sparked your interest for math and programming?
Okay. So my mom is actually a programmer too. So when I grew up, we had computers at home in the 80s. So they were different computers. They were like Commodore Plus 4 and Commodore 64. And we had some few games on these computers, but mostly there was nothing else to do with those computers. Just started programming, writing some little scripts to draw some lines on the TV. It was a TV actually. The computer was connected to a black and white TV, so we didn't even have colors that time. And it was still before the internet age, before the Google age, and all the knowledge which we wanted to know, they were available in books. So there was a very limited information that time. So, but nevertheless, even though it was still much fun to draw some lines on the screen, on the television. And later, the computers were developing. So in the 90s, I think we got a IBM PC. Mm-hmm. This was the MS-DOS time and the Turbo Pascal. And with those, we could make, or I could make more complicated programs. And then also I think in 93 or 4, there was the Windows 3.0. And with some Pascal programming, I managed to write some application in Windows to draw some menus on the screen and to handle push buttons in the toolbar. No, it was pretty much fun. But that time the information was very limited. So there was no internet, we couldn't check up anything. So I had to figure out a lot of things by myself. And it was fun. And then I liked the computer since the very beginning, even though they were very stupid at the time. And it was always it has never been a question that I won't be a programmer. I always wanted to be a programmer.
And now your research focuses on bioinformatics. How did you choose this sphere?
So I got to the university in 1999, and there was a research lab on artificial intelligence, and I joined in the beginning of the second year when I was a sophomore. And the research agenda there was mainly related to Hungarian speech recognition, Hungarian language processing, and I hated it. And after a while, the head of the lab decided to open to new direction, and it happened to be the bioinformatics, and I was happy to choose anything besides Hungarian language processing. So.
And why did you hate it so much?
It's not really for computer programs. There is very poor rules which are actually applied. So of course, Hungarian language has some grammar rules, but most of the time there are exceptions. And when I wanted to write some parsers, there was just so many exceptions for the rules that it was just a total mess. At that time, it looked like computers will never be able to understand the Hungarian language.
And why did you decide to pursue your academic career? And industry nowadays is considered to be more popular and promising?
Yes, now it is. But so I started doing this data analysis, data mining, and machine learning in the beginning of 2000s. And after so it was the beginning of the internet area. And that time the really good jobs were focusing on building websites or some software developments. That was the main things. And when I told to a career advisor or a headhunter that I want to do data mining or machine learning or bioinformatics, they actually laughed at me that there is no jobs in data. This was the first time they heard about data mining, and they know about you can mine coal, for example, in the mine, but data mining, what is it even that? So that time there were no jobs in machine learning or data mining. So I graduated in 2004 from the master program, and in 2007 from the PhD program. And that time it was the data mining or the machine learning wasn't there were no jobs, industrial jobs or industrial applications that time.
So there was no choice.
Yeah. And then in the meantime, I got a postdoctoral position in the United States. So either I stay in Hungary to be a software developer or a website designer, or I go to the United States. So I stayed in academia.
As you mentioned, you have worked in different countries. And what can you say about different approaches? Maybe there are some differences that you have noticed.
Differences between what?
Between academic communities in the United States, in Russia, in Hungary.
I wouldn't. There's a lot, huge differences. I think the American way is more practical oriented or application focused. So they always see that what's actually the problem and how can you make this problem more efficient. Even if you just make something 5% more efficient, if you look at this 5% could accumulate over a year by a large margin, by a large volume. So even for they are very, very, very application focused, and also they think more like in a longer term, in a longer strategy. Like what are actually the real main goals? What do you want to do, or what do you want to achieve? Like they focus on solving or developing some cure for cancer or neurological disease like Parkinson's disease or aging, and these are the main problems. This is what they want to strive for. And then when they have a small grant application or we have a small project, they always look at this like how this is related or how does this take us closer to a bigger problem, to solve some bigger real problems. In the I wouldn't distinguish between Russia or Hungary. They are the Eastern blocs. I think the Eastern Europeans and Russians are pretty much the same in terms of culture and how they solve academics. I think it's more in Russia the academic research is more traditional. So I think the research in Eastern European blocs is more traditional. So, and they don't really, they have some tiny problems. They do some solutions for this, but they don't tend to look at the bigger scope or the larger extent. Where does it take us, or what does it actually solve, or where does it lead?
Well, and is academic mobility important for your career?
I think it's academic mobility is important for everybody's academic career, not only for mine. It's very important to travel to other countries, also try to embrace the cultural things from that country, but also like how they do the research, what kind of problems they are doing, trying to solve. How they communicate, how they organize the meetings or in every day, how they interact with each other, how they collaborate, what they are actually trying to solve. It's very important. It's out of question.
How did the collaboration between you and FCS start?
So I was a postdoc for many years, like 7 years, and I wanted to move to the next stage, which could have been either the industry again or to stay in the academic area. And that time I was a postdoc in Seattle in the United States. We were looking at some positions, industrial position in Silicon Valley, mainly California, but the salary was good there, but the prices are also very high. So it didn't, at the beginning, maybe the first 5-10 years in the industry or into settling down in the United States, it would have been financially very demanding. Didn't seem to be a financially good position. And then my wife is Russian, and then we were also considering to coming back to Europe. We were considering some positions in Hungary or somewhere else in Europe or in Russia. And then there was the international faculty hiring at this university. I applied and I got the job, and I haven't regretted it
And
yet.
well, what was your first impression of the faculty and Moscow in general?
About Moscow, it seemed to be that it's developing, so by a high speed. So it was. It's not common in Europe. So in Europe, you have the old infrastructure. In United States too, you have the old infrastructure, which have become quite shabby nowadays. Or in Eastern Europe and in Hungary, there's just no money for developments. But in Moscow, it looked like there's a lots of investment and construction works all over the city, and it seemed to be that it's moving forward. About the faculty, that time we were in the Kochnovsky Poyez in the previous building. That didn't look impressive, but that was the first time I got my own office, and I didn't have to share the room with anybody else, and I liked it. I loved it.
Since you have seen the previous building and now we're here on Pokrovka, how did you liked the development of the
I
university?
loved it. I loved it. It was very, very good. It was very, very nice environment. It's a very beautiful campus.
And now you are the head of the laboratory. And how did it happen? What was the idea behind forming the lab? And
there was not much idea behind it. So I always had like 10 students who I supervised, PhD students and master and bachelor students. And I thought it would be nice to put their project together into a laboratory or to something to formally organize them to be in a little bit higher level. And that's how it started.
And now, what are the main topics of research for the laboratory?
The main topics, there are like 2 or 3 main directions. One of them, so we mainly analyze biomolecular data, which are produced mass spectrometers, and we analyze. So this data is not human readable. It looks like a garbage for the naked eyes. So we need to have some programs which actually make sense out of the data. This is the first thing. And the second thing, we really don't have gold standard data sets, so we need to have some very good or smart statistical methods to evaluate if the data analysis is correct or not correct, or how can we make it even more accurate. So it's very, very, very interesting. So without any torch in the night, we need to have something which helps us understanding or to helps us to trust these algorithms. It's still not straightforward, so it's still very easy to make huge mistakes in data analysis. The second main direction is that we try to develop, of course, some deep learning or deep learning algorithms to analyze this data in a more accurate way. And then if it works, then we should analyze the bias in it, what's the preferences of the model, which probably should work very well with the human data, but because there are much more data from the human body, that it also should work well with the rare or rarely, seldomly analyzed species like some virus or some bacteria.
Since you mentioned the mass spectrometry data analysis, why did you choose this field? Because it's not very popular and very well known. So maybe you can just talk about.
Well, I didn't choose it; it chose me. When I was a postdoc in Italy, in Trieste, my boss said, like, there is this mass spectrometry thing. We should solve this problem maybe for 1 month, and then we move back to my original project. And then this 1 month wasn't enough. It became 4 years. And then I became an expert in this mass spectrometry field. And then when I was applying for next positions in Seattle, that position required mass spectrometry knowledge and data analysis knowledge. So then I got this position there. Then I continued this research, and I became an expert in this field. And now in academia, there is lots of pressure on scientists to publish, and we need to publish and publish and publish. So I didn't have a chance or time to switch to anything else.
And how does mass spectrometry connected to the bioinformatics? Because it's just not very well-known thing. So maybe you can just say.
Well, it's mass spectrometry is like instrument to analyze small molecules, and they can be organic molecules. And then when you can analyze, actually this instrument, it measures the mass of the specific individual atoms, so it's very, very accurate. And how it's used in bioinformatics is that, like, they take a sample, for example, for a person who has cancer or a tumor, and then you can put these samples after some preprocessing or preparation. You put this in the mass spectrometer, and then you can see actually what are the peptides or what are the proteins, what kind of modifications they had these proteins, or what kind of mutations these proteins have. So this is more like an instrument toward a personalized medicine. So when actually can you get the exact understanding what kind of proteins do you have in a sample, in a complex mixture.
And you are in the scientific world for more than 20 years now.
25.
Well, yeah. And maybe you can tell us about how it's changed over the years, because you mentioned that now it's required to be published every year.
It's changed a lot. So when I started the academic career, it was already the internet age, so I don't know how it was before. Or how did they publish? I guess they printed the manuscript with the typewriter, and then they put in a paper, then they put it in an envelope, and with regular post they sent it to the editors. This was how, but I didn't have experience with this. So when I started the research, we already had the internet. But since then, I think there are 2 or 3 major steps. One of them is the reproducibility. So nowadays there is a much more focus on the reproducibility of your work. So researchers are expected to deposit their data somewhere in the internet, or there are some public repositories that you need to deposit your data. And also when someone writes a program or wants to publish some program, then they should release the code in GitHub or anywhere else. Or if it is the proprietary program, then they need to release the program. When I started at that time with the articles or some conference proceedings, they just contained the paper and the mathematical formulas. But when someone wanted to try these methods, then they had to re-implement everything from scratch, and sometimes, as these methods get more complicated, it would require sometimes years to reproduce someone else's research. So nowadays there is this demand or requirement for reproducibility. I think it's very good. So now if you see some new articles, you can get the data, you can get the code, and you can try it in few hours, days, weeks, sometimes. What else? So the second thing is the code, that now you share the code in GitHub. And also then, so the academia has accumulated a large amount of academic knowledge. And a few decades, 1 or 2 decades ago, they realized in the higher levels that this knowledge should be somehow transferred to industry. So I think MIT had a program to transfer this academic knowledge to applications, to industry. And that was also the time for startup booms, that once someone has some knowledge in academia, and there was lots of grants and funds to move this knowledge to a startup and start producing something which could be used for the humanity, for the mankind. So there is a trend. So they also say that there's a saying that the idea is cheap. If you have a brilliant idea for some mathematical formula, it's cheap. It's not that. I also have 2 or 3 daily. But it's much more difficult to make it work, to establish the work, so to make it work in real programs or real code, to fine-tune the model, to make it work with the data, to make it compatible with the data, to make it run in different platforms, Linux, Windows, Mac OS, iPhones, Android phones. So there are lots of technical difficulties which we need to overcome. So it's way much more difficult to make something work. So there is not much focus on ideas anymore, or theory. There's much more focus on that we are trying to solve real problems, like not this mathematical problems like the traveling salesman or the graph coloring problems, but like real problems like climate change and disease, to cure disease like neurological disease or aging problems. So there are more. The research has become more applied oriented.
Well, that's interesting. And since you mentioned the open source code now, does it help to education? Because since everything can be found online, people do not think as much, probably. Well, because, since you mentioned that now every article has published not only the results, but also the code, and you can make it.
I think it helps understanding.
Yeah.
So before that, you read a paper, and that is one thing, one way to you read a paper and you understand it. This is one level. But then if you want to get deeper in it, you can take the data and try the code and actually go over the code, how it changes or transforms the data. And it gives you a much more deeper understanding the problems. So maybe later you had to, from the one stage to go to the deeper stage, you had to spend half a year. Now you can get this in weeks. So it's so you can get more information, which can be a problem. So you can I've seen nowadays the problem is that you are overwhelmed with too much information, and everything can be done quickly. It's sometimes it's difficult to follow.
And maybe you can give some advice for those who only start their academic career and want to be researchers, and maybe in the field of bioinformatics, for example.
Not necessarily in bioinformatics, but my advice would be first is to find a real problem, which could be like climate change or energy, sustainability, also in healthcare, like the cancer or neurological diseases. So there should be some big problem which affects the life of millions of people. Also, there is this widening gap between social classes. Like most people are getting poorer and poorer, and the rich gets richer and richer. So this is also a problem. And so I would suggest someone chooses a larger problem and get into the details to dig as deep as possible.
But, well, since we're talking about computer science, those problems are probably...
Computer science is like a multidisciplinary field.
Yeah.
So computer science, there's a research in computer science alone to do research on the fundamental of the computer science. That was the topic for the 80s or the 70s. Nowadays, computer science has been always a part of some interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary research. So you don't write programs for the sake of programming. You want to solve something. Like it could be like a natural language or analyzing images or reading user comments, behavior. So you always need to apply these computational problems, codes on some area. And once you get the good education or background in computer science, then you need to also dig into the other fields. If you want to develop some recommendation systems, then you should understand the products, what kind of data you can acquire about the user, because now by law not everything is possible to acquire. Or if it's bioinformatics, then you also need to understand the biology, the basics of the biology, and what others are doing.
So you encourage students not to only know the math and programming, but other fields too. It's important.
Yeah, maybe sometimes even more important.
And well, since you're the head of bioinformatics, do you know the biology, and how did you manage to study it? I
picked up lots of knowledge on the way. I think because this mass spectrometry is not that common in biological faculties, so probably in this aspect I think I know more than most of the biologists. So my expert is a little bit of the chemistry, like the mass of the molecules or the mass of the atoms. Also to write programs, how to analyze these terabytes of data, and also the statistics. So this is a combination of the three things. Well, that's amazing. Thank you.
And so for now we have like small questions, but you can answer them whatever you like. So what book are you currently reading?
Oh, I'm reading some bedside stories for my kids before sleeping.
That's a nice answer.
Like Tatu and Patu and this.
And what's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? I'm not sure what does favorite movie means. The biggest impression which a movie made on me, it was probably the Terminator the Second. It was released in 93 or 4 at the time, and I was just watching it in a movie theater. And but I would not watch it again. I watched it millions of times. So, but I think that was the movie which made a huge impression on me. Typically, I'll watch these sci-fi movies or the superhero movies. It switches me off. It takes me to some random fantasy world, and it helps me to relax, not to focus on real-world problems.
And what's your favorite city?
City, probably all the cities where I used to live. So if I live in a city, somehow I get some emotional bond to the cities. So my favorite cities are the ones where I have ever lived.
Okay. And what's your favorite hobby?
Hobby?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have any time. I like programming. I like when, for example, my students stuck with the code and I can take it over and then solve it.
Well, that's nice
and
for students too.
and it takes for 1 or 2 days, and I just I like it. Programming,
Well, unexpected. Okay. And your favorite dish?
probably anything from the south,
Really?
like Mediterranean, Indian, Chinese, Mexican. This.
Well, now it's strange that you have never worked in Asia.
Well, in Italy it was.
Oh, yeah.
it was-
Italy.
And in the United States, they have lots of. It's very, very much more multicultural country. They have lots of Asian cuisine and Mexican cuisine and South American cuisine.
Well, and what does FCS now mean to you?
Well, it's my life, my work, my love.
Well, thank you for the interview.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It was interesting.
Yeah, we will wait for you again.
Thank you.